all the chess players you see in front of you, they have two things in common. Can you guess what they are? First, they are all world champions. And second, they became so strong mostly with the help of books. Books are much more difficult to learn from as compared to courses or YouTube videos, but that's where the real improvement lies. They force you to make the effort. That's why I'm going to speedrun a chess book, try to solve as many pages as possible in 8 hours, and then offer you the results. But how do you study a chess book, and how long does it take? I am going to answer all these questions by speedrunning a book by one of my favorite authors. That's for leisure time. Yeah, this one, exactly. Now, when you buy a book by these two authors, you can never go wrong. The rush for these books in the chess community is the same as the rush for the iPhone on the day of its launch. Yes, totally. I am in awe of this book. I have been standing in this line since 4 a.m. and I have also my kidney here just in case. I tried to get a physical book, but in the mayhem that ensued in the bookstore, well, I was lucky to get out alive. Idea. Before the pandemic, whenever I used to study chess books as ebooks, I would mostly use the Forward Chess app. They have a huge collection of amazing books. Of course, there are a couple of bad ones, but I just needed mine. Once you have the chess book, the first thing to do is to read the preface or introduction. Without it, you have no clue how to approach the book. Wait a second, this book has 900 plus pages? Okay, we are ready. One advantage of this software is I can click on any move in the book and it will automatically happen on the board. I don't need to put the pieces one by one into ChessBase. I can directly have a look how the game is being progressed. I have the first position of the book in front of me. Let's try to solve it. As I'm speedrunning this, I cannot afford to spend 15-20 minutes. So I will be taking only 5 minutes for each position. So let's go for it. Well, I have the king on d7 and I cannot approach the white pawn clearly. So I have to move it to the c file. I have three choices in fact. Now king c8 I can pretty much discount because that will allow f8 queens. So I have king c6 and king c7. So it's kind of process of elimination. Let's calculate both variations one by one. What is the difference between both these moves? We have king c7 now. Now white has many choices. He can either play the move king g7 or he can play the move rook to b1 or he can take the e6 pawn or he can play king e7. King takes pawn on e6. Then I have c4 and I think that should win for black because now king e7, c3, f8 queens, takes, and then c2 wins on the spot. After king c7, if he plays king e7 or king g7, I think the concept should be similar. Let's say I play c4, let's say he queens, takes, and c3. Does he have any sort of defense here? It doesn't seem so. So king c7, let's look at rook b1 now, basically stopping the pawn in its tracks, but I can just play c4 and I don't see what white achieved, not much. I think now he can maybe take on b2, that might be the threat. So if I take with the rook, now he queens, but then I have rook f2 and I pick up the queen. Wow, so that is one variation to keep in mind. From initial analysis, the variations seem to work out perfectly well. Nothing seems to be wrong, so definitely we are missing something. And you know what is different with king c6? For now, the only difference I can see, I have rook b7 check ideas. Apart from it, I don't see any difference between king c6, king c7. Is that significant? Wait a second, he's not forced to bring his king for no reason. He can simply push the g pawn and do what we are doing, right? It can't be king c6 because king c6, g4, c4, g6, c3, g7, c2, f8 queens. And it doesn't matter whether you take or not. Let's say you take, g takes, you take on d1 and then queen c8 check. And if you move to the d file, then queen d8 picks up the queen. And if you move to the b file, then queen b8 picks up the pawn. And only white can win that. So I think king c7 is the only move. So what the book has done is it gave me a position to solve and then it shows me the game in which that position occurred. Yes, I was correct. The book says king c6 was played in the game by some grandmaster and which was completely wrong. King c7 was the correct solution. Now, it took me a lot of time to solve this. This space will not do. Let's hurry up a little bit. Okay, so puzzle number 2.
A few moments later.
Okay, so the first hour has passed and I have finished 4 sub-chapters out of a possible 73. At this rate, it will take me like 18 hours just to finish the first entire chapter out of 6 chapters. Dude, this is impossible. R2 is almost over, but if there is one invention that chess players can benefit from, that would be the automatic setting up of pieces. Like, you look at a position and somehow the board magically rearranges. Setting up the position itself is literally so frustrating. It takes up so much time. Just look at this crazy position. White has the choice of taking this pawn or this pawn. And I calculated the correct move, but I missed one critical detail. So after taking this pawn, king d6, king b5, king d5, a5, c4, a6, bishop e3. I saw that here white has a simple move king b4, but I missed that after bishop d4, g5, c3, g6, c2, g7 you have to take, otherwise I queen with check. Now a7, c1 queens, And now again, the second pawn queens with check as well, and I would have drawn the game. So yeah, very, very interesting positions. Oof, look at this example. It's insane. So usually what comes to your mind in this position, black to play? What would you play here? If you are like me, I would probably play king f4. That to me makes the most sense because I want to, of course, put pressure here. The white king can't approach, and it feels very logical. But here, I mean, this is insane. So the plan is to play the move bishop c4. But the concept is to play now bishop d5. And after bishop a4 and bishop f3, basically we allow white to have connected pass pawns, and our pawns are stronger. Now this is so difficult to imagine. For example, bishop d1 now, bishop takes, king takes, and you might feel, oh my god, one pawn controls two pawns and two pawns are queening. But now h5 takes it, and now g4, and somehow these isolated pawns, because they are further advanced, are much stronger than these two and these pawns, h6, king f6, and white resigns. For example, king e2, f3, king f3, d3, king takes, and d2, and black wins. Halfway down, 4 hours in, I felt really tired. I had two choices. Either I could push harder, or I could outsource my work to some Indian guy. But then I realized I was the Indian guy. Hard luck. I am into r5 and I ran into a position which I have seen before. And this is a very, very instructive example. I just have to show it to you. Now this is black to play, and if black simply goes back with the king, I can play king d4 and win the game. So that's why he has to play d4 check. And after king to d3, he plays the move king to d5. Now, obviously, if black captures this, we are lost. So white has to play c6. And now, what does black play? That is my question for you. If you are like me here and also Eltaz Safarli, your first thought would be to take this pawn. Of course, what else can we do? But now after king d4, king to d6 and g4, white has the opposition. That's why after c6 in this spectacular position, the best move for black is king to d6. Oof, what a beauty. The idea being after king takes d4, he can chop this off now. And if king to e5, then king to c5, we should be absolutely fine. And if now g4, then we take the opposition with king to d6. So now you ask, Sahil, what if white does the same? He also ignores the pawn now. And now black reveals his just insane idea. King to c7, not taking the pawn yet. If king c5, I queen and black wins. So now you have to pick up this pawn, and now I pick up your pawn. And of course, if g4, then king d6. So the only variation to look at is this one. And as you can see, with the advanced pawn, black is not really risking much. In fact, the king should not do an f6. It would be check. Let's put it on h6 and a3 here. Tuck, 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 and it's a dead draw. It's been 5 hours. I'm tired. No wonder chess is a young man's game now. I need some coffee. Oh wow, that worked. Every correct puzzle would make me really hyped up, and every incorrect one would pull me down. I found a beauty for you. Look at this. What should black play? Clearly the white queen on d8 is having a lot of threats. The king on c6 constantly under attack. The obvious move here is the move f2. You want to get rid of this pawn. Otherwise, white can not only just give a few checks and then capture this, but in fact, he can also play the move king f2 next, and now you have no checks at all. That's why black plays the crazy move f2, and now of course you have to capture this pawn as white. But now comes a crazy idea. In the game, a grandmaster rated 2600 played the obvious move queen f5 check, but there's, well, a not so obvious drawback with this move. The king will now slowly dance around and go to the square b4, where it cannot be checked thanks to the white queen. That's why instead of playing this check first, black had to play the move b4. That is the crazy idea. If now we take here, for example, now simply queen f5, and the white king does not have an escape route. And if queen b6, then the king simply goes back to d7. And after queen b7 check, king to d8, queen takes b4, but again the queen occupies the b4 square now. So the white king cannot escape, and now queen f5 check. And wherever the king goes, we'll keep checking it forever. What a beautiful concept by black here. Entering into the 7th hour, I realized something very important. So if you had to arrange the chess pieces in decreasing order of value in the endgame, what would the order be? So clearly the queen will be the strongest, then you will have the rooks. But here the author mentions that he would value the king more than the minor pieces. He basically equates the king being equal to 4 pawns in the endgame. Now, and I never bothered with this relationship, how strong the king is. I always felt it is a pretty strong piece. But the author equating it to 4 pawns as compared to 3 pawns for any bishop or knight, it kind of blows my mind. I never gave this too much thought. What is your opinion about this? Would love to know in the comments. 7 hours down, 1 hour to go. It's almost as if this was my day job and I was getting paid for this. But I think so far in the 188 pages that I've finished, I really learned a lot. I had to rush through certain portions, clearly some deep variations which I could not cover. Otherwise, you can spend like hours on a single position. Yesterday I was exhausted. I basically practice for 8 hours. Now, it might seem that this is a lot of time for people who have not studied chess, but honestly speaking, this is just an average day. You are supposed to practice for 8, if not more hours as a professional chess player. However, I personally have not practiced for so long, at least for the past year. So this really tested me out quite a bit. Now, anybody who's dreaming of becoming a professional chess player, keep this in mind. This is hardcore preparation. This is what is required from you. Sometimes you'll have a coach for your benefit, sometimes it'll be a friend, but this is basically what is required of every professional chess player. Every kid you see right now fighting for norms is going through the exact same process, and you can see why kids already have an advantage, because they have less distractions and more focus. So how to study a chess book? First of all, make sure the resources you use are the best ones. Second, never try to simply just run through the book. Set up the positions in the book on the chessboard and then try to think about the position on your own time, and only after you've done that, then look at the solutions and try to compare notes. Sometimes even playing those positions with a friend, if that's a luxury you have, might be really beneficial. One important last point, books are not your only resource nowadays. Most of the world champions that you saw, even including Carlsen, by the way, got their main knowledge before 2010, and that's when books were the main resource. Nowadays, you have top level courses, you have YouTube videos available, so you can definitely use those, but books also have to be a part of it. Now, if you can pardon me, I have some other books to read. You, meanwhile, should definitely check this video. Oh, I didn't know that.